Oh, welcome back, everybody, to Catching You. I am your co-host, Rusty Ham. My other co-host, Lacey, she is off. We've given her the day off. But I do have a special guest with me. I have Coach Greg from Athletics Mercado. He was actually one of Lacey's, your 16U coach at one point. So welcome, Greg. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, of course. Glad to do it.
Yeah, thank you. So just a little bit of background of yourself. Did you play? Obviously, I want to assume that you played sports, but what kind of sports did you play? And where did you grow up? What kind of sports did you play? And then kind of what led you to entering into the softball field?
Sure. So, just like everybody else, anybody my age or older, you played everything growing up and you found what you liked and, ended up playing baseball was my first passion and love. I started as a catcher, ended up as a pitcher. And that just was kind of the love. But more importantly, like right when I got out of high school, I started coaching, and I was coaching baseball at 18, 19 years old, right in that range, and I never stopped. It's actually how I met my wife was through coaching in Little League, and then my our oldest daughter, my stepdaughter Kendall, one day decided she wanted to play softball. So I'm like, okay, cool. Signed her up for the local rec league, and I was watching what the coach was doing, and I'm like, we're not doing that. And I jumped in, and next thing you know, you fall in love with the sport, the speed, the athleticism, and I did, the rec ball and the all-star thing, for a couple of years, and took our league's first team over to the ASA Nationals, and thought I had it all figured out. So then I jumped into the travel ball world right around, I don't know, 2007, 8, something like that, and just never left. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey to say the least. But
Yeah.
you never expect that. Like, I figured I'd coach baseball, all the way through and all that stuff, and nope. I got into softball and never wanted to leave.
That's right. Yeah. So we have
Baseball should be, by the way.
What's that? What'd you
Softball is
say?
what baseball should be.
That's that exactly. Yeah, I tell everyone once you go to softball, you don't want to go back to baseball because
Yeah.
it's so boring. Um, no, I love baseball. All the the nuances of it, but softball's so much faster, and yet you still have those strategies and all that kind of stuff. We have similar stories. Once I graduated high school, I started coaching basketball right when I was 19 years old,
Yep.
and then have stopped. So pretty cool that we have kind of similar stories there. You are now, how long you been with Athletics Mercado?
Probably like 7, 8 years. I don't know. They all run together after a
They all
while.
run together. Yeah, I remember when you guys first started, because Lacey was a bat buster, and then with the Athletics Mercado, and then you guys actually in our backyard, so it was kind of cool to kind of see you grow to where you guys are at now. You do have a daughter currently now. Her name's Lauren at the University of Kentucky. Congratulations on that. It's awesome. This is a father-daughter podcast. I
Russ,
talked
you
about
froze
my
up a little
story a
bit
little
on me,
bit with
buddy.
Lacey. Oh, you cutting out?
Yeah, sorry about that. I think it's just the weather why it's
Oh,
being
okay.
a little temperamental today.
Yeah, sorry, I can edit it all out. So yeah, so the father-daughter podcast. As you know, I've had a couple stories with different podcast, our podcast, where I put a lot of pressure on her as a father because of the organization she was in. She was a bat buster, and I was putting pressure on her to perform because if she didn't perform, it looked bad on me. I look, as a father, if she didn't perform, then I thought I failed her as a father, and so I was putting so much pressure on her, and we're doing pitching lessons, and then when we're doing a bullpen at our house, I didn't treat her very well when she had bad bullpen session. I get super upset with her because then I'm like, oh, she's gonna now go to these games. She's gonna suck, and Campbell's gonna sit her, and she's not gonna get a scholarship. So I had all these things going on in my head as far as a father, right? And so I pushed that onto her, and she broke right one day. As 12 years old, she was in the kitchen crying, like, why are you acting this way? Why are you treating him this way? So it was a good breakthrough for us. I'm not sure what your relationship with Lauren. Did you coach her? How long did you coach her? Why didn't you coach her? And then we can get into some other things as far as father-daughter
Probably a
dynamics.
little different for me and Lauren, just for the sheer fact that she grew up on the dirt and all that. I was already coaching travel and at a very high level when when she was born, and well, actually not when she was born, but in her formative years, say 3, 4, 5, years old. Got pictures with her in Colorado with me, at events and all this good stuff. But
yeah,
other than like the rec ball, hey, I'm gonna coach that team and get them started off the foot. We made a conscious effort that I did not coach her. This way I can still be dad. And, I did take her team for 2 years in 14s, just for the recruiting piece, because we weren't going to leave that part to anybody else to trust that they, had the connections I had or anything else like that. So I did coach her for 14s. And then once she was done in 14s, we kicked her straight up to our 18 gold team. And then I went back to 16s full time. And that's right around the time when, Lacey was playing for me. But that was a goal of us as a family, was for me not to coach her directly. And I took a different, approach with her, where I would show her hey, this is the avenue you should think of. But she was also the kid that you got to kind of slow down, because she was going to go 110 at it at all times. And, she was a pitcher when she was young. The best day ever is when she stopped pitching, because, you can empathize with this, I'm sure. Every single pitch matters so much, and I could not understand why. I'm like, I've been around this game forever, and I'm having anxiety over, So the best day ever was when she stopped pitching. But she did the EM training twice a week. They did hit her batting practice. They did, she's going 6 days a week. Friday was her only day off, unless we had games or something like that. And it's just like, but I tried to do the best to let her choose her own path in it, and not be, the thumb down on her, for lack of a better term. To some degree, I wish I would have been a little bit more, but at the same time, it worked out just fine for her. So, God's plan, not ours.
Yeah. So a great point on just wanting to be a dad. A lot of dads out there want to coach their kid because they want to have total control throughout their whole journey, right?
It's because they think they know better.
Yeah. Some don't trust other people. Maybe they had a bad experience with a team, so they're like, screw it, I'm gonna take it, and I'm gonna take my daughter. And a lot of people get upset because, it's daddy ball, and, she's the shortstop. She's batting second when she's probably not very good. When Lauren was on your team for the 14s, first year and second year 14s, what was that like, coaching your own daughter, number one? And then number two, you talked about the recruiting part and your connections. I want to touch on that a little bit, because Lacey had a different situation prior to getting here with you, and I wanted to talk about that as well. But when you had Lauren on your team, what kind of advice would you give other dads that have their kids on their team?
Don't do it.
Do it.
Yeah. No, it's such a different dynamic. And, we had a really good squad. I mean, we're, as good as it got at that particular age group. I mean, we finished top 5 in PGF as a first year 14s team. And then our second year, we were ranked number 1, whatever those rankings were. And, we didn't finish it off. But, there's a couple of instances where I can look back and I should have said, hey, you know what? I should have pulled Lauren in this situation. And I didn't make that move. Now, it wasn't because I was playing daddy ball, but it was just one of those things where, you probably do get a little bit worried about that ride home a little bit with your wife or something like that, because you pulled her or something. There's only one instance really that I thought, and it was a tournament up in Northern California, the PGF Ultimate Shootout or whatever. We're down, or we're tied 1-1 with this team that had no business playing with us, but they're getting, and my screen doesn't go wide enough for the zone that this umpire was getting. He had to be, straight out of rec ball, never did travel ball in his game. He's getting not only the batter's box, he's getting midpoint of the other batter's box.
Oh, really?
But lefties were hitting this kid really well. And I had Maya Perez, who's at Texas A&M now, on the bench because she wasn't in the lineup that particular one. And I was in a situation, I'm like, no, Lauren's been clutch. She's always been through. She's making hard contact in this game. It's fine. Right. I should have pitched hit her right there for Maya Perez, and the game's probably would have been a lot different. So, but yeah, so it's one of those things, because even if you are doing everything right and you're being totally across the board, and they always say that coaches are harder on their own kids than anybody else, but at the same time, there's just that perception that would be happen from anybody who isn't in your shoes, that it's a tough area to navigate sometimes. So
yeah. So and then
I've only had to do it once, and I'll never do it again.
Yeah, I guess my advice, yeah, exactly. My advice to fathers is just treat them just like any other player. I know it's hard because you're the father. Sometimes you need to take a step back and be the coach rather than being a father, and because there's a lot of dynamics. You have people chirping in your ears probably all the time, like, "Oh, why is she playing?" Oh, it's because dad is the coach or whatever. Funny story though, you said that you guys were top 5 in first year 14s. I don't know if you remember, but you beat our team.
I do.
Campbell's team, Lacey. Actually, that was she just got back from her injury, and PGF was her first tournament from her injury, her head injury, and she she got the starting nod against your team and didn't fare too well. But congratulations.
I won't talk about what the score of that game was, but I do remember it.
Yeah, I think she walked the first 4 batters, and Campbell's like, "Okay, you're out." But she's just coming off an injury, and that's her first tournament, so you got to give her a little break.
And honestly, I get it. I mean, that's one of those things. PGF, it happens so fast.
It happens so fast, yeah. I do want to thank you. I don't know if I ever officially thanked you for taking on Lacey on your team, because the teams that she was on, Campbell and Stith, those guys, colleges, they didn't necessarily go to colleges. They never called colleges and said, "Hey, I have this girl," right? It was mainly, "Hey, you're coming to us. So whoever you need, then you come to us." So that was kind of rough for Lacey, because they didn't really go to, the colleges weren't looking at Lacey at the time, because she was throwing high 50s, maybe low 60s. And so the colleges weren't really coming for her. So she wasn't getting any looks. And then I wanted to thank you for taking her on, because once we got on your team, you immediately started calling coaches, and we immediately got into, we went to North Carolina on a visit, which was super cool. And then COVID hit, right? And I think COVID kind of screwed a lot of that up. But I wanted to thank you personally for taking her on and advocating for her, because I think for people that are listening, you need to find the right organization that's going to advocate for your daughter. Obviously, your daughter has to put in the work, right? I know a lot about your organization. You don't take girls that are they just half-ass it. You're going to take girls that are going to go after it for themselves, but you're also going to advocate, right? It's almost effort for effort, right? You're going to pour gas on those girls that are kicking some butt, right?
Absolutely. There's a fine line too. One, you got to find a team that fits your level of play, right? Because one, you got to be able to be on the field no matter what. Mm-hmm. But two, you got to put the work in and be good, because I can pick up the phone, but one, I'm not going to lie. So you are who you are. And and I'm not going to pick up the phone for somebody who hasn't earned the right for me to pick up the phone for them and to advocate for them, because I'm not going to put my reputation on the line, and no coach worth his salt is. And that's one of the reasons why we have so much success in the recruiting aspect, is because when I talk to XYZ school, who I've known for 10, 15 years, and I tell them something, they know it's going to be accurate, or good, right, wrong, or indifferent. My opinion matters, because they know I'm not trying to sell them a bill of goods, for lack of a better term, that, they know what they're getting in that process. But that's only built up through years of building relationships and just being open and honest with people. And that includes the player, because everybody's got those, top 10 list. Oh, I want to go to Oklahoma. I want to go to UCLA. I want to go to, but you don't have that type of talent level. You need to, relay that to the player so they can adjust their expectations of where their current talent level's at. That's really what the most important part of recruiting is just being open and honest with people. I could be wrong, right? But not often.
Right. No, I've seen it firsthand, right? Like, you guys are in our backyard, and a lot of your girls went to the high school that Lacey went to, and I see, you're just pumping them out, and these girls are going to some really good colleges. So September 1st just happened. What advice do you give? Because Lacey was devastated September 1st because it never happened, right? And I'm sure there were some girls September 1st were expecting a phone call at 12:01 and it never happened. And then they expected a phone call right before they go to school and it never happened. What kind of advice would you give those girls? Because there's a lot of girls that have unrealistic expectations. They think they play on a travel ball team and they're going to get a call at 12:01. What kind of advice would you give those girls? Because not everyone's going to get a call that.
That's such a good point. So one thing I try to do is I get a pretty good gauge on where the athletes are before September 1 hits. And I usually schedule 2 calls. One with the no-brainers who I know are going to get 10, 15 calls, which we've had plenty of those kids through the years. Mm-hmm. And we give them a list of questions that, hey, these are the things that you should be, thinking about when you're talking to schools and what's important to you. And then I have another call with the question marks. And I don't mean to label them as question marks, but I just don't know if anybody's going to call. You're going to get 5 calls. Hey, we might need to go to work and reevaluate. And you'd be surprised. Like I have kids right now in the SEC that are starting in the SEC. They didn't get any calls in September 1st. They didn't commit till October, November, of their junior year after we got back on the recruiting trail. So it's definitely not the end of the journey. It's the start of the recruiting period, which is a big change. I mean, when Lauren came through, she committed the very last day before the rule change in the 8th grade. So we started the process really early with her. But that's the biggest thing is, one, it's just a starting point. It's not the ending point. And I understand how social media works and the anxiety level that these kids are feeling and the pressure that, like, hey, I'm supposed to be committed now. I think it's lightening up a little bit, I hope, because when they shut off the water valve from the recruiting rule change, that's those 21s and 22s were the ones that were like, oh my God, I was about to commit. And I could think of a couple of kids that went to Lacey's high school that if they would have let the rule open, they would have had their pick of the litter come fall of their freshman year or whatever it was, their sophomore year. And once that rule changed, all right, their commitment level didn't remain the same. And they didn't go to a school until very recently and like JC stuff. So
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And, some of the most talented kids that were at that age group, I do like the rule change to the junior year, to digress a little bit. But that's my biggest thing. And then 2, don't jump at the first offer. No matter if you didn't get a call straight away, take your time as much as possible, because the transfer portal is a real thing and we want to keep you out of it. Yeah. And that is also what the other biggest piece of the puzzle is. So many PSAs, potential student athletes that are coming up through high school, have no idea they are competing against every single kid in college right now. And for that same scholarship dollars. Now, there's some things that are coming down the pipe where it looks like we might be moving into a head count sport, which would be awesome, which is going to really kind of even the playing field a little bit and have more money available for the schools that are going to be able to have it for more potential student athletes rather than just the transfer portal. Right. So that's kind of exciting. I'm very interested to see that. I don't think every school's going to do it because then not everybody's going to have the budget for it. But, your Power 4s, the fact that we call it Power Four now is funny as
Power
well.
now, yeah.
And your bigger dollar mid majors that have good programs, they'll be just fine. But that is exciting for the sport. I think it should be a head count sport as well.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, Power Forward, just go on that. We just recently spoke with Des Rivera, went to Oregon State, and she said the story that, you know, Oregon State offered her right on the spot. And she says, "Oh, I need to think about it." And then she called you and you said, "Did you take it?" And she says, "No." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" And you told her to take that deal right away. So, but you're like, what, how many Pac-5s how many Pac-12 teams have offered you? And she says, "None." She goes, "Okay, and then you need to take it." And she's like, "Okay, I'll take it." But speaking of the transfer portal,
honestly,
go ahead.
Real quick on Des, it wasn't about her taking an offer, because I'm always you never commit on site. But she had all these big guys. She was that, I want Oklahoma and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, you got all these mid majors, but you want Power 5. This is your one Power 5. So, and she got a great offer. And
a great deal.
Great kid too.
I do want to touch on what you said about the question marks, right? And there's definitely more question mark kind of girls out there than there are the ones that are going to get the 15 calls and like that. I appreciate it, and this is why I wanted to bring it up, is I appreciate that you're making the calls to those girls to say, "Hey, here's the expectations, right? This is where I see you, and this is where I see colleges. These are where I see colleges that you will go to. You may not get a call. If you work hard, you might go to these colleges that you want to, but you also need to be looking at these other ones, maybe." So, I just wanted to bring that up. I appreciate that, because not every coach is going to call the question marks and say, "Hey, you might not get a call," right? So I want.
Hopefully, more and more coaches are taking inventory of that. I mean, I imagine anybody that's been doing it for a number of years, and you're especially up in those 16s and 18s, I mean, you get a feel for this. You really do. Like, I used to be able to tell you exactly when a kid would go, so to speak. Oh, you're going to go fall your sophomore year. You're going to go, spring your junior year. You're going to have to sweat it out a little. Like, you could usually get a gauge of that. But more so now that the rule changed, I mean, there's no reason not to have continual conversations with your athletes and your families, and just kind of prepare them the best you can.
Yeah. Let me ask you this on the transfer portal, right? Obviously, it's a big deal. Tons of girls are transferring. Obviously, with the Pac-12 breaking up, that was going to happen, right? There was a lot of girls that, especially Oregon State and Washington State, they're like, what about us? So, they're not going to hang out in the West Coast and, play San Jose State and those type of plays, those teams. But talk to me about the transfer. To me, what I'm seeing is it's almost being used as a higher end JC, where they commit to a certain college knowing that they're going to transfer to the college that they actually want to go to after a couple of years.
Oh,
is that safe to say? Am I overreaching there a little bit?
No, like, I'm sure there's probably some aspect of that, to whereas a kid thinks that they have Power 4, Power 5 talent, but for whatever reason they didn't have spots available or what, and think that they can go put up numbers for a year somewhere and then be able to move up to a higher school. As far as the mid majors, I do see that as let's be real, the big fish are eating up the best players on those teams to come to them. So that is a real thing. The hard part is the amount of kids who think that just by putting their name in the portal that there's going to be a school waiting for them on the backside with no numbers, because you sat all year. You're going to have to rely on a relationship of your old travel or somebody who was recruiting you back in the day, and hope that they have money on that. The number of kids that just blindly go in their portal because things are hard, or things weren't just, they didn't tie the bow in my hair right, or whatever the case may be, that jump in there for silly reasons, that's a problem. And that's one thing that I don't think enough people really understand. That I mean, Des is a perfect example. Not that she jumped in for right, wrongs reasons or whatever, but she had to sit out for a whole semester because she didn't find the right fit when she jumped in. So there's, you know, definitely aspects of that. Now she's at a great school, she's doing great and all that now, but that's my biggest thing with the portal itself is I've had kids jump in the portal, then call me afterwards. Hey, I'm in the portal. Can you help me? I'm like, well, why'd you
Can
go
you help
in?
me?
Yeah, well, you know, and they don't really have a solid answer, and it's like, what? It's hard getting them recruited once, and now we're
Do
doing
you
it two,
recommend
three
them?
times. Yeah. So I don't
Well,
know. That's
then I guess for
for
you,
me.
it'd be like, well, I mean, I think for you, it'd be when you call me before you make that decision, and let's have a discussion, right? I don't know, that would
100%.
probably be the best, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
just
we
because,
we never want to encourage anybody to go in the portal. You want to encourage them to, hey, figure it out. You committed to this school for a reason, right? They were your dream. Remember, I saw all these posts. Your family's Facebook feed was all, you know, I don't want to single out a school, but a school for 2.5 years. What changed? Oh, it got hard because now they're actually coaching you, and you got to do 6 a.m. weights, and you got to do, you know, study halls and all this stuff. And oh, you didn't realize that living in a dorm kind of sucks sometimes. You know, it's like
right.
so.
We've had ex players. We had Delaney Spalding on here. We've had some ex pro players on here. And it's Lacey's senior year. A lot of and it kind of coincides with what we're just talking about. Some girls, their senior year, they just want it over with because maybe they had a bad experience and they just want the season to be over with and just want their softball career to be done. Some are like, this was the best time of my life and I don't want it to end and I possibly want to go pro. What advice? I don't know if you have any advice. I mean, Lacey just wants to have fun this year. She also wants to be successful because she's very competitive. But it just seems like because softball, there's usually an end, right? Not a lot of girls go on to the pros, and quite honestly, I don't think they pay enough at the pros. Like I don't know why some of these girls will go because they're getting pennies on the dollar. But should they have some sort of expectation their senior year, like? I don't know, what kind of advice would you give somebody that is a
You know,
senior that it's about to end, like their softball career is about to end?
yeah, and that's gonna be different for each individual kid for sure. I mean, this is a fantastic sport that, you know, does so much for so many people, and it really is a vehicle for so many kids to get their degrees, to go to grad school, to become lawyers or doctors or whatever the case may be of what they want to actually do in life. And the vast majority of athletes in general, you know, that's what they end up do, going into the workforce in some manner. My personal just enjoy every second of it. If you're not playing for whatever reason, you know, enjoy the process of it and understand that you just did the hardest thing that you might ever do in your life, and that not everybody can do it. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. But it is real, and I'm just, you know, watching, even as a father, watching what my daughter's going through. Like, obviously, I've been around the sport a long, long time. I've had hundreds of kids go off to college through our teams one way or another, but you still don't get an idea of how hard it is until you see your kid going through it and really what they are actually doing day in, day out. That's a grind that they are going in. And for you to go through, whether you played every single inning, you played part time, or you're a role player, whatever the case may be, you just accomplished something great. And
Right.
hopefully you made the best out of it, no matter what your situation was, because it's a fast 4 years. It really, really is. And you hear people say, "Oh, it goes by so fast." It goes. You don't think about it, but man, it really goes by fast. So
Yeah,
hopefully you
and
enjoyed it.
it's a great point too, because especially being with Mercados or Bat Busters and these high end and the expectations and what they're, I mean,
We
they go
expect to win the
through a grind.
national title every year.
Yeah,
Yes.
the for us, it was always, okay, it's national title, not national title or bust, but we're going to get a national title. And then the recruiting will come with it, because if you're a top team and you're vying for a national championship, colleges are going to be like, okay, I want I want to look
Yeah.
at that team and I want some of those girls. Um, but I think what you were saying is these girls, it's just grind, and then all of a sudden it just stops.
Yep.
And then that mindset, their mental health, and a lot of, Lacey's getting into a lot of the mental health aspect. A lot of it's grind, it stops, and then they look up in the air like, okay, now what? So for some girls it's hard. So is Lauren thinking about that kind of stuff now, or is she just trying to enjoy the moment?
She wants to go to law school after this, and
okay.
will become a lawyer. And she had an internship to help that this past summer. Like, don't get me wrong, she's in there in the thick of it, fighting, competing. But I don't think there's any aspirations to do anything beyond college. She knows that this is the last 2 years of her softball career at the moment. Let's be real. They probably don't know what they want for breakfast tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, she's definitely under the, hey, I want to go get to the World Series and set up myself for the best I can for the rest of my life. So,
and then, as a father, how often do you try to make everything? Do you have certain tournaments that you try to make to go see? Well, I know you took a couple days. I know you took a couple years off to watch her, right?
I still, what I did is I didn't take any teams. I didn't take a team last year. I just stayed with our gold team and was an assistant. So I had a little bit more flexibility to come and go watch as many series as I could. The year before, I was supposed to do the same thing, but I ended up going back and taking a 16U team because we had a team that we needed some help with. So I ended up taking a team when I wasn't supposed to. And it was one of the funnest years I had. We weren't the top team in our program or anything like that, but yet we were 1 out away from finishing top 10 at nationals. We had a great chemistry, great parents. It was awesome. And some of those kids are starting their freshman year in college now. But it was really, really a fun year. And actually it's one of the best teams I've ever had, not in the sheer aspect of how good we were, but it reminded me of why I got into coaching. And that's actually why this year I'm dropping down and going to 12U so I can keep on teaching again.
No.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a 12U team for the first time. They were really good. They were in the PGF finals in 10s, and now they're going up in the next division, and I'm taking over that squad. And oh boy, we're going to have some fun.
There you go.
Whether they know it yet or not.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you said PGF. PGF or Alliance? Is there...
PGF all day, every day for myself. And that's always been my preference. And the main reason for that is I don't think that, and it is a spoiled perspective for me, is we're in Southern California. There is no reason why we need to jump on the plane when PGF has the best weather. It has great competition. Like, there's some things, their balls are horrible and they do not fly. They need to do something about that, but that's a whole nother story. That is the only thing wrong with that tournament. But I was not a fan of the split in general, but I get it. I've done both as far as Alliance or PGF, and I like the PGF model so much better. Just me personally. Us.
Yeah, you froze on me.
Yeah, did you get most of that answer? Did you get most of that answer?
You said right after you said right after the split, when they split, and then you
I understand different people have different ideas of what this sport needs to be or what they can get out of this sport, and whatever works for each other. I like the thought of the model of following it like the Women's College World Series model, but at the end of the day, you can go to Alliance and finish in the top 10 and only play 3 different teams. If you did the model in a certain way, I think it might have been modified a little bit when they added the extra team into the super regional rounds. But when it was just 2 teams, you could just go through and play 3 teams and you're finished in the top 10, but you got bounced or whatever. So that's one thing I wasn't necessarily a fan of. And the way they do the rankings, 1 through 16, it leaves a little bit to be desired of, how did this team... Okay, I'll give you a perfect example. So my 16 and under year, 3 years ago, we were the number 1 ranked team. Okay, we went into Alliance number 1 ranked. We were really good that year. We just won Colorado. I mean, we were mowing. We won Triple Crown Nationals. And then we run up against Texas Blaze in the super regional round. They have Taylor Townsend, the kid that's on the U.S. national team going to Florida. They have AK 47. I can't remember her real name, but she's at Kowalski or something, like she's at Florida now. They were really good. And you're telling me that that's the 16th ranked team when I don't want to throw some of the other teams out there that were like in a different thing where I'm like, no, those guys are horrible. How are they not that put? And
Right.
they took us out in 3 games, so we didn't even make the Elite Eight as the number 1 ranked team. And it's all speculative, but at the same time, I know they kind of put them there for a reason. Just saying.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I appreciate your time, Greg. Again, thank you again for coming on, number 1. Number 2, thanks for having Lacey on your team and vying for her and advocating for her. I appreciated that, and I respect Athletics Mercado. You guys are in our backyard, and I see a lot of the girls that come through our high school, and they're all good girls, and they do a good job. So I appreciate you coming on. Good luck this season, and good luck.
Next thing, we'll need the patience, so I can pray for me.
Yeah, I will pray for you. All right, Greg, take care, and we'll see you later.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks, man. Whew, good stuff.